The human's boots crunched over the dry red dirt as he walked toward the ancient alien ruin. His name was Jace, an explorer from Earth, always looking for strange things on forgotten planets. This world was empty, covered in sand, rock, and silence. Only one small village existed nearby, full of quiet alien people who never smiled. They called the place cursed, and warned him not to go near the old ruins in the hills, but Jace didn't listen. He had explored dangerous places before and lived to tell the story. This time wouldn't be any different, he thought, as he climbed the hill. He saw broken stone statues, walls covered in moss, and strange symbols carved into the rock. The air felt heavy, like the ruin itself was watching him. Then he saw her, a tall alien girl with pale skin, glowing eyes and black hair like silk. She stood in front of the largest doorway, arms crossed, her voice low. "Don't go inside," she said. "That armor doesn't belong to you." Jace blinked, surprised. He hadn't seen her before, not in the village, not anywhere. "Who are you?" he asked. Her eyes narrowed. The last one who touched it was eaten alive. That only made Jace more curious. He looked past her and saw a dark hallway, with strange blue lights glowing along the walls. "I'll be careful," he said, and walked past her. She didn't stop him, just turned away and whispered something he couldn't understand. The air inside the ruin was colder. Jace's footsteps echoed as he walked through the long hallway. Every wall was covered in alien writing, and every turn led deeper into the ruin. He felt excited, like he was about to discover something forgotten by time. Then he saw it. In the center of the stone room stood a black pedestal. On top of it was a suit of armor, dark silver, with sharp edges and glowing red lines. It looked like it had been waiting for someone. Jace stepped closer. He raised his hand and slowly reached out. He hesitated for a second, thinking about the alien girl's warning, but his fingers touched the metal anyway. In a flash, the armor moved. It jumped from the pedestal like a living thing and wrapped around Jace's arm. He screamed and tried to pull back, but it was too late. The armor spread quickly, covering his chest, legs, and finally his head. Then everything went silent. Jace fell to his knees, gasping for breath. His heart raced, his hands shook, and his body felt heavier. But the armor had stopped moving, now fully stuck to his skin. He pulled at it, tried to take it off. Nothing worked. It was like it had melted into his body, becoming part of him. The alien girl ran into the chamber, eyes wide with fear. "No, no, no," she said, dropping to her knees beside him. "You touched it." Jace looked at her, confused and afraid. What is this?" he asked, his voice shaky. She looked at him like she was staring at a ghost. "It's not armor," she said quietly. "It's a cage for something dangerous." Suddenly, Jace heard a soft sound in his mind. A whisper, deep and ancient, like someone breathing beside his ear. He grabbed his head, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her face turned pale. "You woke it up," she whispered. "You let it in." Jace tried to stand, but the armor moved again, tightening around his chest. It felt like it was testing him, feeling his strength, his thoughts, his memories. He looked down at his hands, now covered in sharp metal. "This isn't right," he said, panic growing in his voice. "I didn't mean to." The room began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a deep hum filled the chamber. The walls glowed with red light, and the air grew hotter. The alien girl grabbed his arm. "We have to go," she said, pulling him toward the exit. "If we stay, it will bury us here." Jace ran with her, heart pounding, behind them. The chamber cracked and groaned as if something inside it wanted to break free. They reached the outside just as part of the ruin collapsed behind them. The dust filled the sky, and Jace fell to the ground, coughing and shaking. The armor was still there, clinging to his body, alive. He looked up at the alien girl, his voice barely a whisper. "What did I do?" She looked down at him with sad, glowing eyes. "You just became its new host." The fire in the sky faded slowly as the two of them sat near the edge of the ruin. Jace stared at his metal-covered hands. breathing heavy, his heart still racing. The alien armor clung to him like second skin, cold and alive. No matter how hard he pulled, it wouldn't come off. The alien girl sat beside him, silent, watching him like he might explode at any second. "What's happening to me?" Jace asked, his voice low and dry. The girl looked at him with glowing eyes, her face pale and serious. "You touched the armor," she said slowly. "Now it belongs to you. I don't want it to," he said, shaking his head. "It doesn't." "Care what you want," she replied. Jace opened his mouth to argue, but then he heard it again. A voice, faint and deep, speaking words in a language he didn't know. He grabbed his head, groaning. "Do you hear that?" The girl didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the sky like she was waiting for something. "I warned you," she whispered. "It has a mind of its own." Jace stood up slowly, the armor shifting with him like it was reading his thoughts with every step. It moved more naturally, more smoothly, like it was learning his body, adjusting, becoming him. It frightened him more than anything ever had. He was losing control, and he could feel it. Suddenly, his legs moved faster than he meant to. He tripped, rolled down the rocky slope, but landed on his feet. It wasn't his doing, the armor had corrected him, like a machine pilot inside his muscles. The alien girl ran to catch up. "You see now?" she said breathlessly. "It doesn't protect, it takes over." Jace stared at his hands again, the fingers sharp and glowing. "What does it want?" he asked. The girl looked around before speaking. "It wants war," she said. "It was made for fighting long ago, by a species that no longer exists." "Why me?" "Because you touched it," she said. "Because you're alive and it needed a host." Jace didn't respond. Because deep inside, he could feel something waking up. Images flashed through his mind, strange cities burning, soldiers screaming, planets falling. None of them were his memories. But they felt real. They came from the armor, or from something trapped inside it. Later that night, as they sat near a campfire she built using glowing rocks, the armor began to hum. Jace closed his eyes and tried to rest, but the armor wouldn't let him sleep. It kept showing him more visions, more death, more power, more destruction. He jolted awake, sweating, even though the armor kept his body cool. "Why me?" he asked again, staring into the fire. The girl looked at him, and for the first time, her voice shook. "You're human," she said. "Your kind is strange, unpredictable, full of fire. The armor, it likes that." Jace looked at her, confused. "You mean it chose me?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, but not because you're strong," she said. "Because it thinks you will break." His heart skipped. He didn't know what scared him more, the thought of the armor taking over, or the idea that some part of him might like the feeling of power. Even now, a small part of his mind whispered, "You're faster, stronger, better than before." Suddenly the night went still. Too still. Jace stood quickly, the armor tightening, reacting to something unseen. The alien girl grabbed his arm. "They found us," she said, voice tight with fear. "Who?" Jace asked, but before she could answer, the sky lit up with a sharp red beam. Something flew overhead, fast and deadly, a drone, not from Earth, not from her people either. It scanned the area and then let out a shrill sound. The girl pulled him back into the shadows. "They're coming," she said. "Others who want the armor." Jace swallowed hard, his body tensing as the armor began to shift again. Blades grew from his arms, and his vision turned sharper, colors brighter. He didn't know how to fight, but the armor did. He looked at the girl, his voice barely a whisper. "Will it kill me?" "Not yet," she said. "First, it will make you a soldier." And far away, in the stars above them, a signal had already been sent. The weapon had awakened, and now the hunt had begun. The first creature came at dawn, crawling over the rocks with a body made of black armor and claws that scraped the stone. Jace had barely opened his eyes when the alien girl whispered, "Don't move." He froze, eyes wide, watching the thing. Below them, sniffing the air like a bloodhound. It had no face. only a flat metal plate and 6 legs that moved without sound. The armor inside him stirred, as if recognizing the creature. Before Jace could even think, the armor moved his arms. Without permission, a blade slid from his wrist, glowing red and humming softly. The creature's head snapped toward them instantly. It shrieked high and sharp, then launched itself at Jace. Time slowed. Jace didn't mean to fight, didn't know how to fight, but the armor did. It moved his body, dodged left, slashed up and spun him low. The blade cut through the beast like hot metal, spraying dark fluid across the rocks. The creature collapsed in pieces, twitching, then silent. Jace fell to his knees, breathing fast, eyes wide in horror. "I didn't do that," he whispered. "I know," the alien girl said, not surprised. "It's beginning." He looked at her, chest rising and falling. "What was that thing?" "A hunter," she said. "The armor sends out signals, old signals, from before your kind even existed. And creatures like that follow the call." Jace looked down at his hand, still shaped like a weapon. He tried to pull the blade back, and it vanished smoothly into his arm. He wanted to feel relief, but what he felt was worse, satisfaction. Some part of him had enjoyed the fight. They moved quickly after that, climbing down into narrow valleys, where the wind screamed between the cliffs. The girl walked with purpose, like she had been here before. Jace followed, silent, the armor helping him leap over cracks and cling to walls like a spider. It made everything easier, and that made it harder to hate. That night, as the fire crackled low, the alien girl sat close and whispered, "I need to tell you something." Jace nodded, the shadows dancing over his face. "My people didn't make that armor for defense," she said. "They made it for war." "I figured that out," Jace said bitterly. She shook her head. "You don't understand. It wasn't built for soldiers," she said. "It was made for kings." Jace blinked, unsure what she meant. She continued, "The armor wasn't a tool, it was a throne, worn by only one warlord at a time. When one died, the armor waited for the next. It holds their minds, their anger, their victories, their madness." Jace looked down, feeling sick. "That voice I hear sometimes," he said, "it's one of them?" "Not one," she replied. "All of them," before he could answer. The ground shook beneath them. A loud growl echoed through the valley, followed by pounding footsteps. Something was coming, something heavy. Jace stood, fists clenched, as the armor wrapped around his chest like a shield. A second beast appeared, bigger than the first, twice his height, covered in bone and steel. It roared and charged without warning. Jace moved fast, letting the armor guide him again. His feet glided over the dirt, his arms turning to sharp, spinning weapons. The beast struck hard, but Jace didn't fall. He spun around it, slashed deep into its side, dodged claws and teeth. He fought like he was born for it, even though his heart screamed with fear. With one final leap, he drove his arm blade through the creature's chest. It let out a low moan, then dropped, shaking the ground as it hit. Jace stumbled back, panting, covered in black blood. The girl came to his side, staring at the creature's body. "You're getting better," she said softly. "I'm not trying to," Jace said. "That's the problem," she replied. He sat down heavily, staring at the sky. "What happens if I lose control?" he asked. She didn't answer at first, then said quietly, "Then you won't be Jace anymore." A cold wind passed through the valley. Jace pulled his knees up, the armor already healing small cuts on his skin. He couldn't tell where the armor ended and his own body began, and somewhere deep inside, he felt it smiling. The cave she led him into was silent, cold, and glowing with soft green light from the moss on the walls. Jace followed without speaking, his body sore, his mind louder than ever. He could hear the whispers again, faint voices not his own. The deeper they went, the more the armor seemed to hum, like it recognized this place. He hated how natural it felt now, like a second skin he never asked for but couldn't take off. She stopped near a stone door covered in carvings. Her fingers traced the lines with care, like remembering a story she Never wanted to tell. My family guarded this place for generations. She said quietly. We were the keepers of truth. Jace stayed silent. Watching her open the door with a symbol drawn in the dust, it opened slowly, letting out stale air and a soft chime from deep within. Inside was a chamber that looked untouched by time. Tall stone pillars held up the ceiling, and in the middle stood a broken statue of a warrior in armor just like his. Jace stepped closer, feeling a strange pull in his chest. The statue had no face. Just like the armor's helmet, he stared at it, then turned to her. Who was he? He asked. The first, she said, walking around the base of the statue. He was chosen by the armor when it was first made, back when war ruled the stars. He led armies, crushed planets, became something more than mortal. But he wasn't alone. Jace frowned. What do you mean? She pointed to the walls, where drawings showed figures bowing to a man in armor. But then he grew hungry for more, she said. He wanted power that even his own people feared. They tried to stop him, but the armor refused to let him die, so they trapped him in it. Jace looked down at his hands. The armor quiet now, but listening, always listening. You think I'll become like him? He asked. Her eyes were sad. I think the armor already hopes you will. Suddenly, Jace fell back a step, holding his head. A flash hit his mind. He saw fire, battlefields, alien armies kneeling. He was in the middle of it, wearing the same armor, but standing taller, stronger, ruthless. The memory wasn't his, but it burned like it belonged. He dropped to his knees, breathing hard. She rushed to his side, touching his shoulder gently. You need to fight it, she said. The armor feeds on pain, power, pride. Don't give it those things. Jace laughed bitterly, still gasping. That's hard when all it shows me is how powerful I could be. She helped him up and led him to the back of the chamber. There sat an old console, cracked but still alive with faint light. It's connected to the armor's core memory, she said. It might tell us how to stop it, Jace raised an eyebrow. Or it might unlock even more. She nodded slowly. That's the risk. He placed his armored hand on the panel. It lit up instantly, brighter than before. And the room began to shake. A low voice spoke from nowhere, deep and ancient. New host confirmed, it said. Beginning sync. The armor on Jace's body flared with heat. Lines of light crawling up his neck and into his eyes. He screamed, but didn't pull away. Images poured into him, wars, betrayals, victories, 10,000 years of memory in seconds. And then he saw her, the alien girl, but younger, standing with others like her, hiding something beneath the earth. The connection ended with a sharp jolt, and Jace collapsed. She ran to him again, shaking him. What did you see? She asked, voice trembling. He opened his eyes slowly, and they glowed faint red. I saw the truth, he said. Voice calm, too calm. You weren't just guardians. You were the ones who sealed him in. She froze, stepping back slowly. I didn't lie, she said. I just didn't tell everything. My ancestors. Yes, they locked the warlord in the armor. But we didn't know he would speak to anyone again. Jay stood up, looking stronger, colder. He's not just speaking, he said. He's waiting. The chamber darkened as the last of the light faded from the console. Outside, the wind began to howl louder than before, and something far above, something powerful, turned its gaze toward the planet. The armor had sent a signal. A new warlord had been chosen. The sky didn't stay quiet for long. On the third night after the armor awakened, they saw the ship, black, massive, and silent, cut across the stars like a wound. Jay stood at the edge of a cliff, staring up, the red glow in his eyes now faint but always present. The alien girl stood beside him, her hands tight around the small crystal weapon she had carried since they met. She didn't say anything, but her breath was fast and her fingers trembled. The ship didn't land gently. It came down like a hammer, blasting the valley with wind and fire. Trees ripped from the ground, rocks shattered like glass. Jace didn't move, but the armor wrapped tightly around his body on its own. Ready to fight, she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the rocks. "They're not here to talk," she said. Jace already knew that. Dozens of armored figures dropped from the ship, tall, silent, and armed with weapons shaped like claws and fire. They didn't wear armor like his, but their gear was old, battle-worn, and marked with the same glowing symbols Jace had seen in his visions. "They're called the Scourge," she whispered, hiding behind a boulder with him. "They were created to serve the first warlord. Are they alive?" Jace asked. She shook her head slowly. "Only barely." The Scourge moved without speaking, their heads twitching as they scanned the rocks. Then one of them stopped, turned toward their hiding spot, and pointed. The rest followed, silent and perfect in formation. Jace stood up slowly, the armor shifting over his arms like flowing metal. "Run," she said. "No," he replied. "I think this is why it called them." He stepped out from behind the rock and raised his hands. The Scourge stopped, staring at him with empty black eyes. Then they knelt, all at once, weapons lowered, heads bowed. The armor on Jace's chest lit up with burning lines, symbols moving like liquid. The girl ran to him, breathless. "They recognize the armor," she said, voice full of fear. "No," Jace said, staring at the creatures. "They recognize me." One of the Scourge stood up slowly and stepped forward, its voice dry like dust. "Command." "Received," it said. "Orders, warlord?" Jace blinked, shocked. "I'm not a warlord," he said. But the Scourge didn't move, didn't question. "You wear the armor," it replied. "You carry the memory." He turned to the girl, uncertain. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "I know," she whispered. "But the armor doesn't care what you want." The Scourge formed a circle around them, protecting, watching. Above, the massive ship opened again, and more came out. Not just warriors, but machines, drones, weapons. "It's building an army," she said, stepping back. Jace felt the armor pulse against his skin. "You said I'd lose control," he said. "You still might," she replied. "But now, you might take others with you." Suddenly, the ground split open near them. A blast from above fired down, sending rocks into the air. Another ship had arrived, this one newer, faster, human-made. Jace looked up in shock. "That's from Earth," he said. The girl pulled him down. "Then your people are here to stop you," she said. Explosions shook the cliff as the two forces clashed, the Scourge versus the humans. Jace stood between both sides, torn between memory and self. He didn't know who he was anymore. A man in armor, or a memory of something darker. A human voice echoed from above through speakers. "Stand down and remove the armor," the voice ordered. "If you don't, we will treat you as hostile." Jace closed his eyes, the armor tightening. He heard the old warlord again, whispering deep inside his mind. "Let them try." The Scourge raised their weapons, and the air filled with the scent of war again. The alien girl looked at Jace with wide eyes. "Please," she said. "Don't let this become a battlefield." But Jace didn't speak. He just stepped forward, as the armor covered his face once more. And in that moment, the first shot was fired. Smoke coiled around his boots as Jace walked through the burning valley. Ash drifted like snow, and metal groaned under the weight of what had just happened. Bodies of Scourge soldiers lay scattered, glowing faintly with fading energy. Human ships hovered above, watching silently, unsure if he was friend or threat. He didn't look at them. His eyes were locked on his own hands. They were still shaking. Not from fear, but from how easy it had felt. The armor had taken over during the battle. It had moved with speed no human could match. Every strike was perfect, every block precise. And Jace had let it happen. He hadn't tried to stop it, because deep down, part of him wanted to feel that powerful Riva, covered in dust and blood, found him near a shattered engine core. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Are you still in there?" He didn't answer right away. Then slowly he nodded. "I think." So she stepped closer, looked into his eyes. "Don't lie to me," she said. "The armor. It's not just waking up anymore. It's growing." He wanted to argue, but she was right. The armor didn't just fit him now, it followed his thoughts before he spoke them. It gave him strength, but also took little pieces of him each time. Pieces he wasn't sure he could get back above them. A loud mechanical howl echoed through the clouds. Riva froze, eyes wide. "That sound," she whispered. "That's not from Earth." Another ship appeared, dark blue and pulsing with green. Energy. It didn't land gently. It slammed into the ground like it wanted to break the planet open. From it came something different. Not a scourged soldier, not a human, but a hybrid. Tall and twisted, half flesh, half armor, and it spoke with two voices layered on top of each other. "You are not the first," it said to Jace. "But you wear his skin." Jace stepped forward, the armor already covering his arms again. "Who are you?" "I am the reminder," the creature said. "The one who failed to kill the last warlord. And I will not fail again." Without warning, the creature charged, fast and heavy. Jace met it head-on, blades clashing, power rippling across. The valley, they moved like lightning, both fast, both deadly. But while the creature fought like a beast, Jace moved like a ghost. The armor whispered again, "Let me handle this." Jace hesitated, then let go. Time bent. For a moment, he saw every angle, every weakness. He moved through the air like it obeyed him. He struck the creature's legs, arms, chest 3 times before it even turned. But the reminder didn't fall. It grinned, mouth full of broken teeth. "You're still holding back," it said. "Do you fear what you'll become?" Jace backed away, breathing hard. He did fear it. Not the power, but what it might erase his memories. His choices, his name. Would he still be Jace? Or just a weapon pretending to be a man? The reminder raised its hand, forming a spear of light. "This ends now," it roared. But before it could strike, something happened. The sky cracked open. Not with light, but with silence. Everything stopped moving. Even the wind paused. And from above, a shape descended. It wasn't a ship. It was the armor pure, perfect, untouched, floating with no host. No voice, just presence. It hovered between Jace and the reminder, then turned slowly toward Jace. "You are not ready," it said, in a voice made of storms and memory. "Choose now." Jace stood still, unsure what it meant. Then his armor began to peel away, piece by piece, as if being judged. And for the first time, he felt cold again. He was human, standing in a war he didn't ask for, and they were all waiting for his answer. The world stood still as if time itself was holding its breath. Jace stood in the open, bare chest rising and falling as the armor floated silently before him. It looked like a ghost made of metal and memory, spinning slowly in the air. The reminder stepped back, hissing, afraid not of Jace, but of what was now floating between them. Riva watched from the rocks, eyes wide, hands trembling, not knowing whether to run or kneel. The armor had peeled away from Jace's body, yet it hadn't left him. He could still feel it in his bones, hear it in his mind. It wasn't just something he wore, it had become a part of him. But now, it wanted an answer, and the question wasn't about battle, it was about identity. "You were never meant to lead," the reminder growled. "You are a shadow of what came before." Jace didn't move. He remembered the visions, the battles, the chaos, the galaxy burning under the warlord's hand. He had felt the power, tasted the control, and for a moment he understood why the others fell. But he wasn't one of them. He never asked to be chosen. And maybe that's why the armor had chosen him. He looked at the floating suit, glowing with ancient symbols. "You don't control me," he said, voice steady. "I'm not your weapon." The armor didn't answer with words. It pulsed once, gently like a heartbeat. Then it began to break apart. Tiny metal pieces floated in all directions, glowing as they spread into the sky. It wasn't attacking, it was releasing itself. Jace stepped forward, watching the pieces drift upward. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't just a host, he was the end of the cycle. The reminder screamed in rage and charged, but Jace didn't raise a weapon. He raised his hand, The broken pieces of armor responded, swarming around him like stars, not to protect, not to kill, but to merge. Only this time, Jace wasn't being taken over. He was choosing. The armor reformed, new and strange. No longer shaped by warlords or ghosts. It fit him like it had never fit anyone before. When he opened his eyes, they weren't red or white, they were clear. He met the reminder's charge head-on. There was no flare of power, no violent blast, just a flash, a single strike and silence. The reminder fell to its knees, then crumbled into dust. Jace stood above it, not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as himself. Behind him, Riva approached carefully, her voice soft, hopeful. "Is it over?" Jace looked at his hands, still glowing, still powerful. "Not over," he said, "but no longer controlled." He turned to the skies where ships waited, some from Earth, some ancient and hidden. They had all come to see what he would become. But he didn't care what they thought anymore. He had one goal now, to keep the armor from choosing again, to make sure no one else carried its curse. As the stars returned to silence and the valley cooled, Jace walked away from the center of the battlefield. The armor faded slowly, piece by piece, until only one part remained around his heart. That part he would carry forever, not as a prisoner, but as a reminder.